We'll ask you the same question that we asked Alan May when we had him on in the last hour.
Okay.
We debated amongst ourselves, obviously, and we asked our listeners the same thing. I don't want to bias you or lead you in any way. If the season ends, with this series and they're eliminated here, and let's just say 5 or 6 games, whatever, is the season considered a success?
Oh, man, that's a tough one, but it's a very good question. I would have to go with no. I don't know what Alan's answer was, but I just feel like this team is like 5 or 6 years behind right now. Like they should have already made a couple of trips to the Eastern Conference Final, and right now it's like cramming for your exams. Like they're at that last stage of their, I don't want to say development, but that window that we've been talking about that's been closing for the past few years, it's only open like an inch or two right now. I mean, Alex Ovechkin's 32 years old. He's no spring chicken anymore, and you got to wonder how many more legitimate kicks at the can this group is going to get. So I would have to say no. You start looking at the potential matchups. I know you never want to look ahead, but I said last year if the Capitals had gotten by the Penguins in game past them, I think a pretty good run of the Cup. I feel the same way this year.
I agree with you on that part. I think, though, if you just base the season on whether or not you win the Cup being a success, well, you're going to be a pretty miserable person.
Yeah, but he's looking big picture.
I would say at least playing for the Cup, though, guys. I mean, second round in some places, that's every year. I mean, this is a good team and has been a good team for a long time. I wouldn't call it a failure, but I would say it certainly is falling short of expectations if they don't get past the Lightning and at least into the championship round.
But did you have that expectation going into the season? Because that's another part of the equation. A lot of people had muted expectations because of all the turnover.
See, he answered your question. Now you want him to come to your side. He disagreed with you.
No, I'm I don't think Tarik, maybe you did. Did you have expectations that this team was going to compete for a Cup? I didn't at the beginning of the year. I didn't think they were.
I had them as a contender. I didn't think they were the odds-on favorites the way they had been the previous 2 years. But when I looked at that roster, even at the outset of the season, and they got off to that slow start, I figured at some point they were going to turn it around. I didn't know they were going to win the Metropolitan Division and end up in the third round. But I did have a feeling that if things fell into place and they got a few breaks and they stayed healthy, that they were going to be able to make a run. Because if you just look at the history, especially with the last 10, 15 years in the NHL, the best team doesn't always advance to the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, last year, the Nashville Predators were the 16th seed. The 16th seed, and they made it all the way to the final. You need luck. You need calls. You need health. You need pucks to hit the outside of the post as opposed to going in. One of the more interesting comments I remember from Barry Trotz after they got past the Penguins. He said once that Kuhnhackl shot in overtime hit the outside of the post and didn't go in, he goes, "Yeah, I think we're going to win this one," because it just seems like the Caps have been so unlucky through the years, and once they started getting a little bit of luck, I had a good feeling they were going to win that game, and I still feel like this is a better team. Maybe not as talented, but it's a better team. I think they've got some runway still in front of them right now.
Tarik, you mentioned Tom Wilson will be back in the lineup for the Caps for Game 1 against Tampa on the road. What sort of trickle-down effect will that have on the lineups that Barry Trotz will put on the ice against the Lightning?
Well, we're going to find out here shortly when they go through their line rushes, but it's going to have a big impact. It's going to squeeze at least one player out of the lineup, obviously. I think that you go right back with Wilson on that top line, right wing on the first line with Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Kuznetsov, and then you kind of try to make the parts fit from there. And I would say one of the big conundrums I'm sure that the coaching staff is facing right now is what do you do with Jacob Vrana? He had been on the third line, he'd been on the fourth line, but he's been playing like a top six guy here the past few games. Do you keep him in the top six with we don't know the status of Nicholas Backstrom yet, but we're going to find out here shortly. On that second line with Oshie on the right side, or do you bump him down and put Chandler Stevenson, who might be a little more responsible defensively? They've got some options here. I do think that the big question as we try to figure out what those forward combos are going to look like is what's the status of Nicholas Backstrom. I think Wilson just goes right back to where he was before What's the deal with number 19? We'll find out here shortly. As a responsible player in terms of his defensive assignments, he still makes too many risky plays. There was a play last game. And don't get me wrong, this kid's going to be good. He's going to be a 20 to 25 goal scorer in this league, maybe more. But there's still some times where he'll try like a fancy bump pass off the wall and it gets intercepted, and you're like, that's why they don't trust you yet, because you keep trying those high-risk plays in situations where it wasn't warranted. But that trust is starting to come. The question is, now that you're in the conference final, do you want to go with a guy like Chandler Stevenson, who's not going to score as many goals, he's not going to make as many plays, but he's going to make the safe plays at the other end? That's the kind of the situation they have to kind of figure out, walk that fine line. Which way do you want to go? You can also rotate them based on situations, which is what they did in the Columbus series.